Yo, I'm back with another deck tech video, and this deck tech is one that I didn't think would actually be very good when I first started playing Eternal, but for whatever reason, it's actually started to make a comeback, and this deck is known as Crystalline Chalice. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Slade. Hope you have all had a phenomenal and fantastic day today. So today's deck tech is something that I originally, when I first started this game, didn't think was going to be very good, to be honest. But here recently, I've seen where people have been playing this deck and have actually gotten to top in the Masters ranking. So it's kind of got me excited to go back and look at this deck list again and see what it's all about, because I think that now that a few of the cards here recently, they just came out, like a few that we're going to mention here in the spells category. Now that some of those have come out, I think that I might actually go back and play this deck again and see what all I can do with it. But the deck list is known as Chalice Control. It's pretty self-explanatory. There's one specific card it's built around, and then the rest of the deck is just control spells. So the card that we are going to be talking about today is a card by the name of Crystalline Chalice. Excuse me. Crystalline Chalice. Once per turn, you may pay 2 and exhaust one of your units with 2 attack or less to give it +2/+2, and you draw a card. Okay, so basically what it's stating is that your units have to have less than 2 attack in order for this to actually be viable, right? So let's start off with the units. As always, so we have 26 units in the deck. We have 4 Desert Marshal. It has Ambush, which is another term for Flash if you're a Magic the Gathering player. So you can play it on your opponent's turn, and when you summon it, you can also silence another unit. So let's say, for example, your opponent plays a unit that has like a haste ability, right? And it's a really big unit, and you don't want it to attack at that specific point in the game, you know, and you just happen to have a Desert Marshal in hand, and you can cast it. You can cast Desert Marshal to silence that unit, and it can't attack that turn because it no longer has, you know, the haste ability, you know. So it's really handy in situations like that if you're trying to get rid of a specific unit that you know will cause you problems. That's what Desert Marshal is in here for. So then you have the Far Watcher as your next unit. It's a 2/3. It has Endurance, which basically just means that it's a blocker and an attacker at the same time, because it readies itself on each player's turn. It can't stun it, and you can't exhaust it by enemy spells and effects. So even if you attack with this unit and get to where that it exhausts itself, as soon as you end the turn, it comes back again. So you can always block with this unit. But then it also has a one-time ultimate ability. You can pay 6 to give the Far Watcher flying, and then you get to also play a 4/4 Owl with flying. So you get 2 abilities for the price of, you know, 6. You get to give him flying, and then you get a token that's a 4/4 Owl that also has flying. Next up, we have Temple Scribe. It's a 1/1 for 2, and that kind of seems, you know, that's not really that great. But when you summon it, you gain 1 life, and you get to draw a card. So in decks like these, drawing cards is essential. It's like that is your main priority, is to draw as many cards as you possibly can get, because by doing so, you can hold back on your influence for control spells, or you could also, if say you needed a specific card like a board wipe, then you could use Temple Scribe to draw a card and hopefully get that board wipe that you're looking for, or whatever card it is that you're trying to get. Now this one is something different from the original deck list that I saw. There was a different unit in this spot, but I think that this unit is absolutely perfect for this deck because of the fact that you gain life by drawing cards. And as you're going to see here shortly, once we get to the spells, one of your main win cons is a spell that draws you a bunch of cards. So that one specific card with this in play could bring you back right into the game if you happen to be losing at some point and your opponent's like, oh, I've got this in the bag, and then you just happen to cast the card that we're going to look for, you're back in the game, and they can't really do anything about it. So, but it's called Camel, Amaran Camel, to be specific. It's a 3-drop 0/3, and when you draw a card, you gain 1 life. But the thing with this is that because it's a 0/3, you can actually use Chalice twice on Camel and draw 2 cards. So you would use this on him for 1 turn, then the next turn, if it survives, you can do it again and then draw you an extra card, and then you gain a life for drawing that card. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Amber Acolyte is the next one. It's a 3-drop 2/1, so this is another one of those, just like when you first look at it, you're like, eh. But it has a summon ability that says you can draw a sigil of your choice from your deck. So this is one of those units that when you play it, if you happen to be short of a specific influence or power, and you really need that color, you really need that color. So let's say you had white and blue, but you needed green, like you really needed green really bad. Acolyte is perfect for that. You cast it for 3, and then you go and search for that green source, and you put it into your hand because you get to draw it, and you also get a unit on top of that. So it's pretty decent for a 3-color deck, if I do say so myself. Okay, so you guys have seen this one before for those that have watched my previous deck tech, Arulian Merchant. So you guys should know how the merchants work by now. But again, this one gives you a +1 maximum power. It's a 0/4. And then you get to swap a card in your hand for something that's in your market, which we'll get to the market here shortly. And then the last unit in the list, it's a 2 of instead of a 4 of. But it's one called Lumen Defender. It has Deadly. And then Deadly basically means that if it blocks a unit, then it kills it. No matter how big the unit is, it dies. But when you summon it, you gain 5 life. But even though it has Deadly, the other big thing that's a part of this is the fact that it has a body of 5. And then you use Crystalline Chalice to pump it up even further, so it becomes a 7 toughness, which is absolutely ridiculous for a Deadly unit. But and then the fact that when you summon it, it gains you 5 life. It's pretty good. Alright, so we've already gone over Chalice. There's a 3 of in the main, and then we'll talk about the market here in a second, but go ahead and note there is a 1 of in the market. Okay, so now we're going into the spells. Now here's where you get into the control aspect of the deck list, right? So you have Defiance. It's a 1-drop Justice card. It's a fast spell, and it has 2 different abilities that you can choose from. So you can kill an attacking creature or unit with cost 3 or less. So if the influence cost for a unit costs less than 3, so any of these, for example, and it attacks and you cast this card, you could kill that unit unless it had Aegis, and then it just gets rid of the Aegis ability. That's the only downside. But if it doesn't have Aegis and it costs less than 3, With Defiance, you can just straight up kill it. Or if the opponent didn't have a unit that costs 3 or less, but instead has something that costs 4 or more, you can instead stun that unit and it will stay stunned for 2 turns. So you can prevent, say, like your opponent from winning the game by casting Defiance and saving you for 2 turns if you're low on health. So something along those lines. That's a 4 of, by the way. Then you go into Icebolt. It's a 2-drop blue or Primal Spell. Deals 7 damage to a unit. Its owner plays a Sigil of their choice from their deck depleted. It's a fast spell. So this one, I always compared it to Path to Exile that you would see in Magic the Gathering. But it's slightly different in the fact that Path to Exile exiles the unit instead of just dealing damage. This one deals damage to it, and it deals 7 damage unless, you know, you had a way to make it to where it could deal even more damage, which is possible, by the way. So instead of exiling the unit, it just deals damage to it, and 9 times out of 10 will kill it. And then the last part of it is exactly like Path to Exile, except for the fact that I believe that Path to Exile, it does not tap the mana. They just can go and search for it and put it into play. This one literally states that when they go search for it, it's depleted. So if, for example, they had a couple of cards in their hand and they had 0 influence and you played Icebolt, then they couldn't, when they get the influence, get that 1 extra power and then use something like Torch to get rid of one of your units when you pass the turn back. So that's really good for the price of a 2-drop fast spell, at least in my opinion. Alright, so this is another one that was a change. This is in the original deck list that I saw, but it was a 1 of instead of a 2 of, and I'm going to explain why that I put it as a 2 of. But 2 of Pristine Light. Kill each unit. It's a 3-drop Justice card. Sorry. It's a 3-drop Justice card. It's a regular spell, so it's not a fast spell. Kill each unit with 4 attack or more. And then it has Onslaught. And if you guys remember from the last deck tag, you should know what Onslaught does. Onslaught, when you attack with a unit, before you cast this spell, draw each unit from your void that died that turn you cast Pristine Light. So for example, let's say your entire board state is a bunch of like 4/4s, okay? And your opponent has practically the same, okay? You attack with 1 unit and they say, nah, I can take the damage, I'll take it. So they took the damage, they took 4 damage. Then Onslaught triggers. You cast Pristine Light, you board wipe everything that has a attack of 4 or more. So basically in this scenario, everything gets destroyed. However, because you attacked with that unit, all of your stuff that you just board wiped goes back to your hand, so that you can recast them again if need be, which is absolutely insane. It's practically a one-sided board wipe if you play it right, okay? Alright, so next up we have a 4 of Wisdom of Elders. It's a 3-drop Primal Spell. It's a fast spell, and basically all it does is you draw 2 cards, okay? So pretty simple. It goes very well with the Camel as well. So you draw 2 cards, then if Camel's on play, you gain 2 life. So you get a 2 for 1 there. Next up, we have a board wipe, another board wipe spell. It's a 5-drop Justice card. It's just a regular spell, so not a fast spell. Literally, the easiest thing you can understand. Kill all units. Wipes everything clean. Nothing left, right? The only thing that it doesn't get around is Aegis. So if your opponents have Aegis and you board wipe with this, anything that they have with Aegis is going to stay, pretty much, right? Okay. So this is what I was talking about as being one of your win cons, okay? So Chalice is a win con in and of itself, but then this is another win con, okay? So Channel the Tempest is a 9-drop primal card. It's not a fast spell, it's a regular spell. You draw 3 cards, so you already know it goes well with Camel by drawing the 3 cards. Then deal damage equal to the number of cards in your hand. Okay, so basically what this is saying is that the more cards that you have in your hand, the better it is for you. That's what control is all about, is that keeping as many cards as you possibly can in your hand so that you can get through any situation that your opponent tries to deal with you with. That's the whole purpose of control. So it's like when you're going up against a control player as like an aggro mid-range player, if one of those players sees that the control player has a full hand and then their influence or mana is completely open, you know that control player has something in their hand that they can deal with you with because of the fact that they didn't cast anything. So if you play something, say like you played a unit, and then I say, oh no, you know, I don't want you to have that unit. So here, instead, I'm going to Icebolt your unit on your turn, even though you just played that, and get rid of it. That's the whole purpose of control. You want to play the slow game. That's how control works. For those that are new to card games or in Eternal in general, this is strictly for those that, you know, are brand new to this game or any card game in general. When you're playing a control style deck, you want to play the slow game. You want to hold back everything except for your units and then your win cons, of course, so like Crystalline Chalice and stuff like that. You want to hold back as much as possible so that you can control the board state and make it to where that your opponent either just scoops because they have nothing that they can do against you, or you win by getting to your actual win con and then just outright winning that way. That's how it works, okay? All right, so now we're going to get into the power. So here is where you'll see an example of your typical number for power. So around 25 to 27 is your typical number. In the other circumstances, like you've seen in my last deck tech, you can see more influence, or you can even see less influence. But this is your typical number that you're going to see. So between 25 and 27 is what you're going to be trying to strive for. But you have 25 power in this deck. You have 3 time sigils. You have 3 justice sigils. You have 3 primal sigils. Then you have Crest of Progress, which is a time justice duo. You play it depleted, but then you also get an ability called Scout. Scout basically lets you look at the top card of your library, and then you get to decide if you want to draw that card on your next turn, or you can put it on the bottom of your library and then draw a different card that's on top of that. So you get to basically decide what your next draw is going to be. That's how Scout works. Okay. So the next one, we have a 2 of Seed of Progress. It's kind of similar to this one, except that it's depleted unless you have a regular sigil in hand. So if you have a time sigil in hand with a Seed of Progress, instead of this being played depleted, you get to play it straight up, and you get that influence with the dual colors. Pretty simple. Alright, so this one is called Crest of Wisdom. It's the blue-white version of the same thing of Crest of Progress. So this one is white-green. This one is white-blue. Okay, so it does the exact same thing. Seed of Wisdom is the same thing as we just talked about before with Seed of Progress. It's the blue-white version of Seed of Progress, but it's called Seed of Wisdom. And then the last 2 is basically the same thing as we just seen before. It's called Crest of Order and Seed of Order. Crest of Order is green-blue, and then Seed of Order is green-blue. So straight up, it's the same thing as the ones you saw before. Okay. Then last but not least, we're going to get into the market. So as you saw before, we have one merchant in the entire deck, and it's a 4 of. And it gets a white or time card, okay? Excuse me, I got the hiccups. So the cards that are in your market, you have Disjunction again in this version. You guys should know what this does. So either you draw an attachment from your void, or you kill an enemy attachment. So let's say that they destroy your Crystalline Chalice. Disjunction allows you to get it back. Or if they are also playing attachments, so if they're playing like a mirror deck and you're playing up against another Chalice Control deck, Disjunction gets rid of their Chalice. So you can do either or with this card. Now this one, I'm not even going to try to pronounce because, let's face it, I'm bad with words. Sorry, guy. But anyway, this card is a 2-drop fast spell for blue and white. Put a unit into its owner's hand, then transform it into a random unit with the same cost. So let's say, for example, they play a unit that's like, say, okay, well, let's say they play Vara, for example. Vara is a, let's say they play what we call Baby Vara in Eternal. Baby Vara is a 4-drop unit that when it's summoned, your opponent gets to decide whether they want to sack a unit or if they want to let Vara get bigger and then gain lifesteal and deadly. Okay. This card specifically states that if you so choose to, let's say that you chose to let Vara have her ability to where she gets bigger and gain lifesteal and deadly, but you had this card in your hand. What you could do is that when that ability activates and then they pass their turn, before you start your turn up, you can cast this on Vara and bounce her back to the opponent's hand, and instead of staying as Vara, the card changes into another random unit, and the opponent has no control of what unit goes into their hand. So anything could happen. It could become a 1-2 unit. It could become like a 9-9 unit. You never know. It's always random. So yes, this could help you, but then it also could turn on you at the same time. It's one of those, you have to pick your battles as to when you use this card. It's you know, you gotta think strategically with this card. Okay, so the next one is Cerso's Choice. It's a 4-drop white-blue spell. It's a fast spell. You either can choose one of the two options. You gain Aegis and 6 life. So you basically get protection from a spell. Okay, so you can choose that option to gain protection from a spell and gain 6 life, or you can deal 2 damage to each unit. So it's a potential board wipe, quote unquote, for those that are, say you're playing up against an aggro deck and all of their units have 2 health. This is your one-side board wipe. Okay, so you can use this to board wipe all of those pesky little 1-1s, 1-2s, 2-1s, whatever the case may be. As long as they have 2 or less on their health, you can wipe them all and get rid of them and not have to look at them again. Because, let's face it, I hate aggro. Next up, Crystalline Chalice. So, as we've seen before with the last deck tech, this one is a 3 of, and then the 4th one is in your market, just in case they do something to your 3 of in your main deck, and you can't play this card anymore, you have an extra one, so that you can get around that. Now, this card is the reason why that I decided to rebuild this deck. Okay. Pit. You've seen this one before in my previous deck tech for the Chainbray deck. When an enemy unit goes to a void, you gain 2 life. In power, play 2 7/7 Sandworms Exhausted. Pretty straightforward. It's a 9-drop relic. So this alone can be a win con as well if you play it right. Alright? But it's not your main win con. Your main ones are Channel the Tempest and Chalice. This one is just one of those like, oh, well, I have extra influence. Let's play this card because why not? Right? Okay. So now I'm going to pull up the original deck list right quick. And we're going to go over the different changes that were in from this deck to the other one. Okay. So instead of Camel, we're going to go back and I'm going to show you. So it is called Healer. So instead of the Camel, this one was in the main deck. For 3-drop white green, it's a 2/2. But when you summon it, you and a unit each get +3 health. So you gain 3 life, but then one of your other units that are on the battlefield also gets an additional 3 life. So their toughness gets bigger. This card is good, do not get me wrong, but I don't like the fact that it's just a one-time ability. So yes, you do gain 3 health for that turn, but that's it. Versus Camel, which states whenever you draw a card, you gain life. So you can potentially gain more than just 3 life. So that's why I swapped those two out. Okay. Now, let's see. Lumen Defender was a 1 of, and then Channel the Tempest was a 4 of. I felt like that Channel the Tempest, it's a really good win condition, but as a 4 of, nah, because you could potentially end up as a dead draw is the idea that I had. So yes, Channel the Tempest is good, but as a 4 of, I think that's a little too much, just because you could get those hands where you see 2 Channel the Tempest in your hand and you don't even have the influence to cast it yet, and you don't want that. You want to be able to cast these other stuff before you ever play Channel the Tempest. So this could have been a potential dead draw, is what it boils down to. So I swapped out 1 Channel the Tempest for an extra Lumen Defender, just so that you could have an extra unit, and you could also gain life by summoning this, and also have another deadly unit. So that's why that's in there. Okay, and then last but not least, Pristine Light was a 1 of instead of a 2 of, and I believe that, okay, so Favor was in the deck. So this card here was in the main, but it was a 1 of, okay. So it's a 2-drop Primal Spell. It's not a fast spell. You gain Aegis and you draw a Primal Sigil from your deck, okay. So it's a Sigil Finder, but you also gain Aegis. But I didn't like the fact that it was a 1 of. Kind of messed with my OCD a little bit. So instead of a 1 of that, I just took that out and added another Pristine Light. That's the only changes to this deck that I made. So instead of the Healer, I put in Camel, because you gain health by drawing cards, which is the whole purpose of Channel the Tempest. You're drawing cards. And Chalice as well, you're drawing cards. So why not use that to your advantage by gaining a bunch of life by using Chalice and Channel the Tempest. That's why that I swapped those two out. Then I took and added a Defender and took out a Channel the Tempest, so that you would get an extra unit and you would be able to gain more life and prevent you from getting those dead draws more often so than you normally would if you have a 4 of. And then last but not least, I took out Favor for Pristine Light. So you get more board wipes to deal with pesky units, and then bring back your stuff if your stuff happens to get up to 4 attack or more. Pretty simple. But anyway, guys, that was the deck tech So now I'm going to get ready to do the gameplay footage here in a second. So what I'm going to do is we're going to end the deck tech video, and then I'm going to go in and get you guys set up for the recording for the gameplay video. We're going to play 3 games just like we did with the last deck tech, and that way you guys can see basically how this goes. If you liked this video, please hit that thumbs up button and also subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And comment down below if you guys have any questions about this deck or any other deck that I'm going to be doing or going to be doing in the future. Please let me know down below in the comment section. I would greatly appreciate it. See you guys in the next video. Peace out and have a great rest of your evening. We're going to play Shimmer Pack. Selecting this to sacrifice. Transform this, and this. Oh, and this, and this.